Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sprint 212 review. This is a normal 2-week sprint ending on May 15th. Let's get started. I'll start with the overview, Jeffrey on the UI, Adam on providers, Joe on the platform, and Keenan on the API. As you can see, this was a normal sprint with 69 PRs merged this sprint and 31 bugs and 22 enhancements and a little bit of the rest. And over to Jeffrey on the UI.
Hey, good morning. So in the sprint, 11 PRs got merged into various repos, out of which 6 are bugs and 5 are enhancements. These are the PRs that got merged, and I can explain about them in the following slides. Add icon for non-operational. So this in this PR, the non-operational icon was missing in the list page, but was available in the summary page. Keenan made an entry in the one of the formatter files in Classic Repo to display these missing icons. Next slide. An issue was reported around the navigation menu section. The menu was not closing when we click on the close icon. David had fixed this by introducing a few checks in the navbar component. Next slide. While adding a new service catalog item, the request info tab contents were blank. This was due to a symbol style issue which got fixed by changing the identifiers in its CSS file. Next slide. Keenan had made few fixes in rendering the flash error messages in Classic Repo. Next slide. David had identified and marked few strings for translations in the service request form. Next slide. The tenant quota list was printing blank values in the tenant summary page. This was due to the fact that the data needed for the structured list component was not loaded properly. And once we did that, and we also added some style changes along with the sphere. Next slide. The roles setting summary pages was converted from HTML to React by Anu. Next slide. The AutoST team added a button in the service edit mode, which enables a user to check what currently attached resources will comply with the selected capabilities. Next slide. The AutoST team also introduced a new feature to list snapshots from the attached physical storage and create a new one based on particular volume object and also to delete it. Next slide. The text inside the notifications drawers when missing after the node upgrade, we believe, and Agil had made a fix for this, and we are now able to see this. And this changes in the UI services repo. That's all from my end. Over to Adam.
Thanks, Jeffrey. So for providers this sprint in core, we moved the repository sync guts out of the embedded Ansible configuration script source so that it can be shared with other embedded automation managers, which will hopefully be able to be used next sprint. In Kubernetes, we fixed a couple of bugs around validating the alerts endpoint. There were a couple of failures that weren't related to validating the endpoint. So we fixed an undefined REST client exception that was caused by the general exception handler having a REST client constant in the exceptions list, but the Prometheus alert buffer client didn't use REST client, so it wasn't required yet. So we just threw a required there to fix that up. And there was an old self.class.parent reference that should have been module parent. So with those both fixed up, it validates properly. For OpenStack, Nasser fixed the infra manager authentication after some previous refactoring, just a simple service name capitalization issue. And then he was able to get the update to Fog OpenStack v1 over the finish line. He mostly was a VCR re-recording effort after deploying an OpenStack with an Ironic service for us to record the specs on. And so we were previously stuck on 0.3, which was many years old at this point. So it was really nice to be able to get that bump over the finish line. Next slide. For VMware, one of the community users posted a question saying that he had a trailing period and a host name, and it was obvious that the only way for that to happen is if the domain name was an empty string. So we end up handling that case so that if you don't have a domain set, but it's also not nil, you won't get a trailing dot in the host name. And for workflows, we renamed the workflow execute to run, which is consistent with how embedded Ansible playbooks are run. And we also prevent the workflow execution if the prototype flag is disabled. So for example, if you enabled it, created a bunch of workflows and then disabled it later, we don't want you to be able to run them. So we check the prototype flag prior to execution as well. And we disabled the refresh EMS support to be consistent with embedded Ansible. Since there is no refresh, this will prevent it from being run as part of the scheduled refresh timer. That is it for providers. Over to Joe.
Thanks, Adam. For platform enhancements, Adam made several schema changes to support some of the recent workflow enhancements. Next, I made several backward compatible changes to support the Zeitwerk code loader, which is the default for Rails 7. Jason dropped the no longer use responders dependency, so that was a good cleanup. For performance, Keenan removed the SQL only fields for filters in MIQ expression, so it can avoid some costly evaluation in Ruby. Brandon added a new process for generating a hotfix image on top of a specific released image, along with several follow-up changes, including one bug fix by Jason. Brandon also added tools for building RPMs specifically for a hotfix. Next slide, please. For bugs, in Linux admin, Keenan removed a hard-coded list of binary paths in favor of using a path environment variable. Keenan also fixed some keyword argument issues in a Linux admin test. Brandon's interrupting Keenan's streak of bug fixes here with, he fixed a typo in the appliance build repo when it was accessing the IBM Cloud uploaded location from an environment variable. Next, Keenan fixed the previously reported bug with the no superclass method conditions equals for MIQ report. He also fixed an issue where dialogues could be deleted if they contained a read-only, couldn't be deleted if they contained a read-only dialogue field. He also fixed an issue where chargeback would not properly find the tenant data if the name of the tenant was changed in settings. Next slide, onto the API.
Cool. So Adam deleted some of the old workflow API that's part of the workflow work, but over in the API, remove those. To get the responders gem out that Jason did, I removed some references in API so that could go smoothly. Jay added support for GET for the Cloud Object Store objects. Okay, on to Jason for the rest.
And that's it for the Sprint 212 review. Our next Sprint 213 review will be on May 31st at the usual place and time. And I'd like to thank today's presenters, all the contributors, and our whole community. Thanks, everyone.